Hello everyone, my name is MansaMusa and welcome back to my channel. Today we're back with another Advanced Wars by Web replay on Darkling Woods. This match was round 1 of the Amarriner Cup. The Amarriner Cup is the premier standard play tournament on Advanced Wars by Web. It is hosted every few months and the most recent edition of it, the 4th installment, was hosted about a month ago. Like I said, this is the first round of the cup, so it happened a few weeks ago. So hopefully I still remember all the moves and whatnot that I played in it. But I'm going to be covering every single round of this tournament that I'm in. So this is the first match, and not to spoil too much, but there will be a second replay coming as well. My opponent this match is Henivicit. And Henny, if you are in the comments or something, let me know if I pronounced that correctly. But you can see that both me and Henny both picked Max on this map, and there's a few interesting reasons why we would choose Max. First of all, it's important to note that this map is mixed base. That means that the bases are strewn across the map instead of being on one side or the other, right? So if these top two bases were both red and the bottom two bases were both blue, that would be more of a traditional setup for a map. Instead, they're interposed on each other, kind of forming this zigzag pattern. That's your classic mixed-base format. For this reason, in mixed-base formats, day-to-day powers are generally more important for the CO as fighting tends to happen earlier. This was a Tier 2 match, which means good day-to-day COs like Max, Kindle, and Lash were all allowed. Now, Max is actually, at the time, was a tier higher than both Kindle and Lash, so that's kind of the hive mind pick where most people went, and obviously me and my opponent both went for Max as well. But after watching various other replays on this map, I think both Kindle and Lash have some good play. In particular, Lash, with all of this heavy terrain of the forest, the cities, even some of these mountains that are strategically placed in the middle, really provide Lash a good access to have a competitive match. That being said, though, I would still probably pick Max, even if I had given the pick some more time. The reason being is his powers are just really strong, and having extra movement on mixed base is also incredibly advantageous, because front switches are also somewhat more likely, switching from one battle to another. Having that extra movement is incredibly important at times, and having powers that can give you that, very advantageous for your CO. And thus, I think Max was probably the best pick on this map. With all that out of the way, though, let's get right into the match. MansaMusa versus Henivicit on Darkling Woods. These first few days, just like most first few days on maps, are not going to be too exciting with capture phase happening for both players. There is some interesting choices you can make from this base. Either some players I saw skipped to get these properties and put pressure up north, or just go for some of these early caps, and then which cap to go for is also a decision. I think ultimately it doesn't matter much. I probably would say that you don't want to skip to get aggressive towards the north and just capture these two cities, but the order in which you do that, not super important. So that's what I go for, and I think my opponent follows suit on his side. Yes, he also goes for these two cities as well. Moving into day 2, I do not go for this city, which is an early income strategy, and instead pressure up here. My idea is to either threaten this city or threaten the double cap of this city into this city. I can always get this city later, and I think I factored out my income that it wouldn't matter if I delayed this city by a little bit in my build order. Otherwise, I continue up some normal captures to the south to get the other easy city, and then pass my turn to my opponent. My opponent does a bit of a strange play here. It goes north of this base, ignoring the cap and ignoring the pressure down south. I think to try to get this city early. I think he was concerned that once I capture here, I could contest it. But I don't really like that play. Again, getting the early income from this should-be weak base here in the center is not necessarily the strategy I think you should go for. Getting aggressive is not necessarily the strategy I think you should go for. Because you can easily get overwhelmed by both sides here of my units pushing towards the center base. So you just kind of want to get your properties, don't get too aggressive, because I'm probably going to flip them in the long term anyway. But that is the decision he made. He moves his troops out in the north. Moving now to my turn. Sorry, I'm kind of OCD like that. When I see units mismatched for whatever reason, I think it has to do with the starting infantry sometimes get turned around. I always fix it whenever I see that in the replays. So I move my troops down here in the south to start contesting these cities, and I do decide to go for this city, mainly because he would have to interrupt his own cap to interrupt my cap here, so it's a relatively safe get, and I think this will be an important position for maybe a tank later on to have defensive terrain and also repairing health on this city as well. So that's the city I go for. And I move out this infantry to go for this chain that we talked about earlier. With my first vehicle, I choose to build a tank up in the north. Again, I kind of identified this as the weak city, and after hearing multiple people talk about this map in the long run, after these initial rounds happened, people actually said that this map doesn't really have a standard weak base, which I thought was very interesting. I don't necessarily, I guess I do agree, right? Because I've seen matches where each of these three bases have fallen at times, so that kind of points to the fact that there is no weak base. But I do think this one is a candidate for probably the weakest of the three, mainly because it's a one base in between three bases of your own on the right side here, and also it has these two mountains to the north and south, which may not look important, but allows for a lot of trapping opportunities, right? If you can overcome this airport with a tank and anti-air push, and then put two units on either side of the space, you can rapidly trap this space from really having any progress whatsoever and easily overcome it. So that was kind of my general strategy going into the match, but I don't believe this match actually turned out that way, if I remember correctly. But anyways, I build my tank up to the north, and I pass my turn to my opponent. My opponent starts the cap on his comm tower, moves his infantry up to the mountain here in the north, and starts this cap that he was concerned about earlier. Again, I naturally now build a tank here, so if I really wanted to, I could start my own capture on the comm tower and completely interrupt him, really damaging his whole plan of skipping this early city in advance. So I've kind of stopped a lot of the point of his early aggression as well, making this an even kind of a worse play than it was already. My opponent does a very similar thing to me in the north, capturing this city, making me either interrupt with my own infantry, or I guess I could do it with the tank as well, and attempting to get this city early. He moves his infantry out to the north as well, kind of mirroring what I did in the south, and starts going up into this area as well. And my opponent builds a battlecopter. Battlecopters, especially for Max, are incredibly strong on this map for multiple different reasons. One, it's mixed base, right? So you can either send it to the north or south, or even necessarily to the left. There's going to be armies all around, and it's really annoying / hard for me to build 3 different anti-airs, really, to deal with all those battlecopters. It's incredibly cost inefficient for me. So this battlecopter is pretty much guaranteed going to have a target that I can't defend. And thus battlecopters are just really good on this map. I'm going to build some of my own later on, but very nice of my opponent to get the first one out. That's always an advantage. My opponent passes the turn to me. I continue my caps in the north. In the south I'm going to. And in the north, I interrupt with my tank on this city of his, because there's no punishment here, and I don't want him to have pressure in this area. I also choose to interrupt his city here instead of going for the comm tower, again, to really punish the play of not getting the early income. And I believe I'm going to try to protect this infantry as well, potentially with an anti-air from the space. I finally get the city to the south, and again, go for these 3 caps, because they are all uncontested. I may build actually my anti-air down in the south to protect this infantry on this cap, now that I'm looking at it. Go for this city. It's protected unless he wants to interrupt his own comm tower, which he's probably not going to do. And move this infantry out to both either capture the city or interrupt it on the mountain. And yes, I build my anti-air to the south to protect this infantry. That's what I ended up doing. My opponent captures this comm tower, gets a few more infantry caps going. And where is this battlecopter going to go? It is going to go to the north to defend the city captures here, and also put pressure on the tank up here. I have up here in the north, and he builds his own tank to really kind of squeeze me in this area. So this is pretty good by my opponent, right? He's going away from the anti-air. I remember I just watched the Degis video on this map, the same map that he was playing in Division 1 actually about a week ago. And he actually said that you don't want to build an anti-air turn 1 because it allows for this exact thing to happen where the battlecopter just runs away. Instead, what he suggested is wait a turn, see where that battlecopter goes, and then react with an anti-air. That way it's always going to be in the right area. I think this is great advice. Kind of overreacted here by building the first anti-air too early. I should have necessarily just let this infantry get hit. It wouldn't have been a big deal in the long run, and then I could have built this anti-air here, and it would have been a much more advantageous position for me. But mistakes being mistakes, that's what I choose to do. He actually doesn't choose to capture here, instead going for the infantry engagement. and he passes it to me on my turn. I finish off the caps. I have a bunch of them on this turn. That's just classic mixed base. I further interrupt this infantry just because now it's going to take him 5 turns unless he joins to capture this city, and move this infantry out to start threatening the comm tower as well. I move my tank up here. I believe this is one of the only safe tiles I had for this tank, between the tank and the battlecopter, and I actually think I'm going to try to join it up with this army to the south and put pressure over here. Because that's another thing about these mixed-base maps. Front shifting is very easy. This map has a lot of heavy terrain, which makes it a bit harder, but in general, it's not that hard to front shift. I move my infantry down in the south, and I build another anti-air, which at this point is definitely an overreaction. I think my idea was that if I move my tank over here, the battlecopter could chase, and then I want to have an anti-air ready to defend. Which is not bad logic, but again, if this battlecopter is just not a threat yet, I should probably be building a battlecopter of my own instead of building all these anti-air. With the anti-air I do have, though, I do push it to the north. Now he's pretty much has to build a tank here, or else I'm going to completely overrun this base, so that's going to be coming in the next turn. And I build infantry on my bases as well. My opponent starts finishing the caps on his turn, attacks the free infantry, and actually goes for the comm tower himself, which is an interesting idea. Obviously, this is a 4 HP infantry, so it's going to take forever to actually capture that comm tower, but he is denying it for myself, so he is getting that extra 10% firepower over me. So there is a benefit in that denial phase, I guess, but the cap itself, not super necessary, I think, because he's definitely not going to get it. There's the tank to ward off the anti-air, and he moves his own tank out from the south to attack this tank as well. Few engagements there, knocking off an infantry. I don't think that's going to be a big threat here, though. I can move my anti-air down and wipe off these infantry without really any threat from himself. So I don't necessarily love that engagement by my opponent. And he ends his turn. Again, starting with all my caps, I move back, get a fresh hit on this infantry on the city to remain full HP on my own infantry on the mountain. And then, yes, I move my anti-air down and kill his infantry. Down here in the south, you'll notice I moved my anti-air to the left. That really was the only safe space away from this tank. And I actually can now combine my anti-air, either push to the right if he moves his tank out of the way, or potentially come down and really threaten this corner base and airport. So we'll see what I end up doing. With my tank, I move further away from both the battlecopter and tank, and again start to pressure this area here. I move this infantry into the mountain to get to this comm tower, and move my other infantry out to capture these cities, or get on their way to capture those cities. Finally able to start this capture here. This infantry has been waiting 20, it feels like 20 turns to do it. It's only been a few days actually, but just a lot of stuff happened in mixed space. The map gets quickly crowded, so it really hasn't been that many turns for this infantry, but it just feels like a lot to finally get to that city. This infantry I position in the mountain just because that's the highest defense terrain to protect the city. I don't really want to get any more aggressive, but I am preparing myself to interrupt if he tries to capture the city. And I don't stay on the city itself, it's important to know, because he can move his own infantry here and basically wipe it out. So this is the highest defense and where my infantry can actually survive while still being able to defend the city. Up in the north, realizing I need help now to address this battlecopter and tank combo, I build a battlecopter of my own. Important to note that his battlecopter can't attack mine. And I build another infantry. Finish off his infantry, that way he has to restart the scat back from 20. And I end my turn. Day 7 rolls in for my opponent, and he rolls out his tank to the right and brings his other tank up to the north. So he's definitely trying to really pressure this corner for me, and I think I'm probably going to be trying to do the same thing for him, as he only has built infantry so far here. So we're kind of both agreeing that actually these corner bases are the weak ones that we're going to be trying to attack. He finishes off my own infantry, continues this cap, There's 3 more turns until he gets it. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition for him. Like I said, forever is a lifetime in mixed base with these turns, so we'll see if he gets it, but I still don't think that's the best play for himself. I'm also realizing I didn't cover this last turn, but I built a mech here. That was probably a funding decision. I probably just had leftover funds, but I probably should have honestly just saved them. I'm not sure what this mech is really going to do besides get in these mountains. I guess the idea of the mech was to, if this tank had actually gone to the south, then the mech could have gotten some value, but again, he just runs away from it, and this mech is kind of now useless. So probably not the best decision by myself there. It is my opponent's turn, though, so let's keep on talking about his moves here. He moves his infantry up into the corner, again trying to pressure the city and my infantry there. And continues his main assault onto these corner base and airport. And builds another tank in the central city. In the central base, that is, sorry. He also gets an engagement on my infantry in the mountain. And completely wipes it out with these 3 infantry. My opponent decides to build a tank up in the north, and I think this is actually a really bad decision by my opponent. I don't think this tank is going to be doing much. Yes, it defends these infantry up here in the top left, but I don't think those infantry were really in any danger, right? This tank can only attack 1 infantry at a time, and the infantry themselves are going to beat the 1 infantry I have in the area, right? So you don't need an extra tank to really protect here, at least not immediately. You could delay that tank for a few turns. Where I do think you need a tank is down here in the bottom left to protect against the assault I'm going to be bringing, right? I already have 2 anti-air that are going to be killing all the infantry in this area. If you just build 1 tank here, it really defends that whole idea and stops me from getting these free kills. So I think this is a bad play. This tank definitely should have been built in the bottom left as opposed to the top. We move into my turn. I start the cap on the comm tower. Realizing that there is nothing to interrupt this cap, I completely cap, or I start the cap on my opponent's comm tower as well. I'm going to get that, and suddenly I'm at the comm tower advantage where my opponent had been in that advantage the whole race and was threatening to even get to 40%. Suddenly, I'm going to have that advantage myself. Again, another reason why a tank should have been built from this base. I move my infantry out to start further attacking this corner, and I bring both of my anti-air in, and now this threat is really starting to look aggressive for myself. I'm going to be needing to build a tank or a battlecopter, get something in that could deal with the tank build of my opponent, but now it looks like we're both threatening these corners more severely. I bring my infantry in on the mountain because he left it open, get an attack there on his infantry on the plains, and finish off, or leave to 1 HP this infantry as well. Realizing that I can just run away from this tank and all this infantry, I bring my tank to the south to continue to threaten this push on the bottom left. And I move my infantry away again so it can interrupt, but not in any reach of these infantry. I think it's important to note at this time as well that I have the income advantage on my opponent, right? I have a 2k income advantage, and I have the potential to get even more, right? I'm going to be capturing this city this turn. I have this city that's going to be free for me to capture, this city, and these 2 cities, where my opponent doesn't really have much free cities left, right? He has this one potentially, but I could fight for it. He has this one that he can probably get, but again, it's close to my bases that I could potentially interrupt. So if my opponent wants to get some of these properties, he's either going to have to start flipping mine, or he's just going to be behind on income in the long term. So this is kind of a few turns down the road advantage that I have, but I definitely have a clearer path to an income advantage than my opponent. Move my kind of useless mech up to this mountain to try to get some pressure. And I believe I'm using this infantry as a blocker to then put this infantry on a capture. That's exactly right. This movement chart is wrong. It can't actually attack the city, so this is going to be a free cap for myself on that city. Up in the north, I spent some time thinking about the best defensive posture for myself, and I chose to attack this tank here. I moved my infantry up to in front of my battlecopter as well to provide some more defensive terrain for it, and I build a tank of my own and a battlecopter as well. That's the advantage of having the extra income. And now this defense looks very strong, right? If he comes in to attack this battlecopter, I have a battlecopter of my own. I have a tank to address his tank along with my 2 battlecopters. And what he really needs at this point is an anti-air to kind of threaten me. But at this position, I definitely have enough defensive units in the area to stop a big push by my opponent. Moving to my opponent's turn, he starts his cap on the comm tower in the south. Starts capturing the city. Again, I can interrupt it, but he starts doing it. Provides more infantry in the area, tanks back it up, so if I'm going to interrupt now, it's going to be a suicide mission, but it still might be worth it. Finishes this capture on the city, goes to heal his tank, brings in his battlecopter to attack mine. Again, though, I have my defensive terrain, and he's giving me charge, so maybe not the best play. Probably something he has to do, but in the long term, maybe not going to work out for him. Starts capturing this city as well. Again, a good move to apply pressure on the corner that you're trying to attack, and defends it by attacking this infantry, protecting this space from me interrupting the city. Brings in another tank and an infantry. Now only 2 turns away for this comm tower. This is kind of the running joke of this map, I guess, but maybe he'll actually end up getting it. And there he goes. He joins to actually get it next turn, so something my opponent will finally get this comm tower up in the north. Starts captures on those cities. Again, wants to threaten this one as well. Bringing this infantry in there to do so, and builds a battlecopter in the central base. Again, I don't have any anti-air in this area because I moved them over to the left, so a good play can attack, either continue attacking up north or potentially go down south and attack these infantry. Retreats a bit in the bottom left like he should be doing, and builds a tank to address my 2 anti-air. Again, moves his infantry in a defensive position, and it goes to my turn. As we roll into day 8 for myself, I think it's good to do a good sanity check of the board position to see where we stand between myself and my opponent. I have a 2k income advantage on my opponent, 20k to 18k, with my opponent capturing this city, so potentially getting that to 19k apiece, and this city as well, so even more threats. I have 25 units to my opponent's 28, and I have 60,000 funds to my opponent's 65,000 funds. It is my turn, so by unit value, I'm doing pretty okay, only 5,000 behind, which is about average for a starting turn. Unit count, I'm 3 behind, which is again about average, and income, I'm winning. But it's not all sunshine and roses for myself. As you can see, board position-wise, I'm in a pretty bad spot. This city's being captured, this city's being captured, he's going to get this comm tower now. This push in the top right looks devastating. He has 1, 2 battlecopters and 2 tanks compared to my just battlecopter and tank that are healthy. And these infantry are going to fall, allowing him to get even more captures in this area. And he has finally built the appropriate tank in the south to address my 2 anti-air. So if you are me in this position, how do you take advantage of this turn? What is the win scenario? Feel free to pause the video to try to find this answer. But it's something I'm very proud of, and a really probably one of my best turns I've had on Advanced Wars in a while. Going back into the commentary, if you found some of my ideas on this turn, congratulations. Let's see how I was able to turn this current board state from one that is disastrous for myself to one that is highly advantageous going into the rest of the game. I start, like any good player should do, by capturing their comm towers. This is a massive mistake I see a lot of players make. I am guilty of it as well, but just always capture comm towers first. It's going to help with your engagements, whatever you do on the rest of the turn. Always do that. Big mistake I see players make. That being said, with my 20% extra firepower now, I bring in my battlecopter to destroy my opponents. Capture a city there, destroy some infantry down the south here, and attack my opponent on this forest, 9-3 engagement on the woods, and you can see I now have my power. I went in Move Planner to do all these calculations exactly to figure out exactly how much damage I needed to do to get this power. You can see I have exactly 27k out of 27k. There were some scenarios where I'd be slightly under, in which case I would have to interrupt with some infantry first to get it, but I knew I wanted to use my power this turn. So I go ahead and pop it, the max force, and let's see what this allows me to do. I start by interrupting these caps with my injured infantry, knocking it down to 9, saving it for another additional turn. Again, doing it up here as well, just preventing income from my opponent and trying to hold on in the north. In the south, I bring in my infantry, threatening both this airport, the city, and the base with my infantry. But you might be asking, how do I get rid of the tank? Well, here's the power of the max force with 2 comm towers against a tank on a base. I come in with 1 anti-air. Boom. 8-5 engagement. You might be looking at that like, horrible trade. Why are you going to do that? It's going to be at 5 HP. The tank's going to heal back to 10. You're just throwing away an anti-air. Well, I bring in the second anti-air and knock it down to 4 HP. Now I have 8 HP on this anti-air, 5 HP on this anti-air, and this tank is in jail, right? These tiles, the move map's not showing it accurately, but it can only go anywhere in this little triangle. Yes, it's going to be healed up to 6 HP, but it's not going to be able to do significant damage to these anti-air. And the real nail in the coffin is moving the tank in as well. This tank can now threaten wherever this tank goes, it's going to kill it next turn. So unless my opponent builds a medium tank or something really hefty on this base is looking very likely to fall. In the north, I do interrupt the city with this infantry on the missile silo. Again, it's a suicide mission, it's going to die, but just holding on to income as long as I can. And I'm moving my infantry up to the north as well. The positioning of this infantry is actually very strategic because I don't want this tank to come in and block in the city, kind of like I'm doing with this infantry up here, preventing this infantry from having movement. This is especially important as well because I'm also defending my airport from capture of this infantry by putting it here to interrupt from the mountain. I captured the city up here. Move my battlecopter into it to get a free hit on his tank. Build another battlecopter here because now there's just tank and battlecopter for my opponent. This should be more than enough defense in this area now. And build another battlecopter here to again stop this, stop the airport from being captured and to threaten this tank here. Now that was the whole defense line that my opponent had in this area against my infantry was this tank. Now I'm threatening it with the battlecopter. And again, you'll see, I don't think my opponent has built a single anti-air this entire match, and I've had 1, 2, 3, 4 battlecopters on the field, and I can maybe find the stat somewhere, but I think I even lost an additional one. So it's kind of crazy that I've had 4, maybe 5 battlecopters this match, and my opponent hasn't built a single anti-air. Moving into day 9 for my opponent, and you can see the situation has changed drastically. If we just do a quick snapshot back to turn 8, this was the board position then. I was basically losing up in the top right, and he had a defense in the bottom left. One turn later, roles have completely switched. I'm defended all the way up here in the corner, and his base now looks like the one that's under threat. How does my opponent respond? Well, he starts by capturing his comm tower, a great start for any player. Captures both comm towers. Now it's 20% for each player, so we're looking at 40% total firepower for land units because we are max. He continues this capture on the city. Now it's only 1 away. Finishes off my infantry and again continues this capture. So he's trying to flip both of these cities now. He wipes off this infantry, but this infantry did more than enough work. It was the main goal of it was to weaken his infantry for a potential push on my corner bases, so it's done plenty of work there. And he moves his battlecopter to the left, probably trying to threaten this tank or just help defend this base as well. Now he actually kind of starts to pull back from this attack in the corner, moving this tank back and the battlecopter for the left instead of going in. This tank is going to go in and attack, but that's a suicide mission with my 2 battlecopters in the area. I don't necessarily really agree with that. He gets an engagement 6-7 up here in the mountains. Again, I don't necessarily agree with that. I'm going to have the long-term advantage there. I think he's really just trying to get some of these properties. This tank was probably actually a blocking tool to confirm that he does get this property flip. But I would say that income actually doesn't super matter at this point because board position is really going to be the relevant battle, right? If I can flip this base and he's giving up on flipping mine, I'm going to win, right? Like the long term, I'm just going to win this map. So I think he's a bit early to give up on this attack unless he's really going to start to defend down here in the bottom left. He builds an anti-air to protect the tank from this battlecopter. This is a forced build, basically, so he had to build that anti-air up north. Moves this tank down to both heal and attack my infantry. And because he was forced to build an anti-air here, you can see this is the real threat of my push, actually. So kind of just talking about this a bit more. The reason why building these battlecopters was so important and this this attack on his bottom left base is because it puts him in his Zugzwang, right? He has no good moves here. This battlecopter really dissuaded any sustained push up in the north because I'm going to be able to defend it. This battlecopter is heavily threatening the northern position now because I can come in and basically kill this tank and then my infantry will win in the long run. So an anti-air is necessary to defend. And if you build that anti-air, then you can't build the medium tank that you would want from this base to really help defend and lock down the bottom left. Now, I do think, while there is no great option for my opponent, I think the best option was not to build this anti-air and was instead to build a medium tank here and start to try to defend this area. And the main reason being is that, sure, I can get an attack here up on your tank for free and start to win up here in the north, but long term, it's not gonna. I'm gonna get maybe a few cities here, but it's not gonna be a game-losing push. If you lose this city and airport combo, it's game losing, right? Like you have to know your win condition, and getting some advantage up here for me was not a win condition. Getting the bottom left city, factory, and airport is absolutely a win condition. So I would have built a medium tank here and let this tank get hit, but I can see why my opponent built the anti-air. Instead, he opts for a mech to try to attack my anti-air and tank. I think this is a really bad build. The anti-air can just chew through this mech instantly, so it's really not going to do much. But I theoretically see the idea he was going for. I just don't think it's the best play. My opponent kills off the extra infantry in the area, stopping any sustained push I could do, right? If I'm going to go to the north, he just wants to wipe out the infantry I have to flip these cities. We roll into my turn, and this push is now in full force. I bring my tank in, destroy his tank on the city. That's possible, again, because of these extra two, where's is it? This comm tower and this comm tower, there it is, that I have that allow that tank to be killed. With my anti-air, I use both to clear this base. I then bring this infantry in to capture the airport, this infantry in to block the base, and now his bottom left area is completely lost, right? He can move this infantry up to clear the base and build a medium tank or something, but now even that is a bad play because I'm going to be capturing the airport, and then I can save up some money. I'm close to the ability to save up just a little bit of money and build a bomber, at which point I can completely overrun this base. There's nothing you can do. So this base, you can clear it this turn, but 4 or 5 turns down the road, it's completely lost, and I've won. I'll win the match at that point, especially because he's not putting any pressure on my base in the north. I start to capture this city because it's free, and these infantry are going to be overrun with tasks to do, especially the battlecopter as well. Again, same idea, moving this infantry into either start joining the capture or replace this infantry on the factory if it gets wiped out, or just capture the city here as well if it doesn't. We look at income. I now have a 4k advantage over my opponent. Again, these cities are going to be swung on his next turn, but it's really not going to matter at this point, so I was able to maintain income advantage throughout this entire game. Yeah, sorry, I forgot about this. The 5 HP infantry actually can't do anything because I kill it with this infantry, so now these are the straggling units left to try to interrupt this capture as well. And that one's gone as well. Sorry, I'm not guessing this the best, but yes, those infantry are now dead, so naturally nothing can interrupt this city. I'm going to get the city now. I have to trust myself a little bit on my move order. I was like, why would I put this in range of infantry that could be interrupted? Well, you're going to get rid of them, and then you're going to get the city for free. So that was my plan the entire time, apparently. I knock an HP off that tank, which allows this full HP battlecopter to get the kill guaranteed. And I wanted that guarantee so it was out of the way so I can clear this infantry cap completely. This was on 1 HP if I remember right, on this city cap. Yeah, it was, so completely wiping that out. Really a blow to my opponent. Wipe out his tank as well. You can see him actually going for a lot of unit kills instead of just weakening his units, getting it down to 22. The reason for that is it makes his SCOP less powerful, right? His main advantage over me at this point is that he has his Super CO power ready, where I don't have any of my powers ready. But if he only has, 15, 20 units, the actual power of that superpower is going to be significantly weakened. And this is the kind of general strategy you use when you're fighting Eagle as well. Just lower unit count makes a superpower less good, but it's a general rule for all COs as well, right? If you're massively winning on unit count, their powers can't get them back in the game as much, unless it's something like global damage, which doesn't really affect that as much. In the north, I get this engagement on the infantry in the mountain. I'm going to win that in the long term and then hopefully capture that city. Move my infantry out to start capturing the city as well. But you can see in this game state, nothing super matters anymore. I'm kind of just moving out troops discriminately or indiscriminately, building some more battlecopters to really threaten this push even further. A tank as well. I think I save a little bit of money here, or yeah, I save $2,000 to potentially build a bomber on the next turn if I have to, or in the next few turns. We move into my opponent's turn, and my opponent resigns the game. Um, yeah, talking about this match, I think the resign was the correct decision in this spot. Yes, you can clear the city and build a medium tank or something, but like I said, you're going to build a bomber and it's going to fall in the long term anyway, and you have no pressure on any of my bases anywhere else. So the match at that point, I think, really is gone. But overall, well, first I'll say GG to Henivicit. I think he played overall a pretty good match. It really was just a few blunders near the mid to end game that I'll talk about now. I think building both the tank and the anti-air up here in the north were big mistakes. The tank should have been built this turn earlier on to prevent against this double anti-air attack that I was able to do once I was able to get my power. And then the anti-air, I don't think it was necessary to protect the tank. I think it should have instead been a medium tank to try to hold on to the city more. If you're not going to go for holding on the city more, you needed to go more all in on the attack to the north east to capture my own city and airport in that area. It just felt a little bit, as D just would say, a little, dabbly instead of stably. And the idea there being that you dabbled around in each of these different fronts, trying to protect everything and getting city caps when you can, instead of really going for a decisive push on the northeast city and airport, which is probably the route you should have gone. You started doing that at the start, but I put up a pretty basic defense, and you went away from that. Which is just the wrong play if you're also going to give up the bottom left city and airport as well. Overall, though, this is a really fun match. I love playing in the Amarriner Cup. We're going to find some of the best standard play matches on the entire site. So this is going to be a great experience for me. I'm looking forward to round 2. I'm already, I think, on day 7 or 8 of that match. So you'll be seeing a replay of that once that map finishes as well. Win or loss in that match, you'll still be seeing a replay. With all that being said, thank you so much for watching. My name is MansaMusa, and remember, capture your comm towers before the start of your turn. Bye, guys.